Well, hello everyone. It is Kristi. It is Sunday, and that means it is time for Weekend Winters. How y'all doing? I'm gonna be honest, I'm not great. But there you are. I'm used to you being over there. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do this anyway, because what else am I gonna do on a Sunday early afternoon before I have to do my D&D prep? Hi everyone! Hope you are doing well, wherever it is, whenever it is you are. And we today are gonna do two nerdy things. First, we are going to have a look at, my camera seems to be, no, it's just me moving. Okay, we're going to have a look at that BS chart that Boghossian et al. Put out, and then at the end, like the last 30 minutes, I was hoping we could continue on. Again, I don't want to do full hours of it because I noticed the subscribers just dropped off, but I do want to get a little bit nerdy with you guys, so we're going to be doing a little bit. Oh, that's super overly lit, so yeah, that's better. Philosophy of social science! Today we're going to talk about historical epistemology, so thank you, French people, French philosophers, for making things even more complicated. Now, it's fine. It's actually a pretty interesting perspective, and one in the English-speaking world we don't tend to get a lot of exposure to, hence a lot of people have no cultural framework for like some of the ideas of Foucault, Derrida, and other French thinkers. So, I mean, if you understand where the French sort of line of thought comes from, it's embedded within that. Anyway, so I think I do a thing where I show you my screen. Again, lower your expectations. And the thing is, though, I've not really set that part. So let me move this thing over here before I do this thing over here and find the, yeah, this is what I'm looking for. All right, so there's chat. Hey chat, let me say hello to everyone in the chat before we move on. The Lucky Wanderer. Hi, how you doing? Hope you're having a good one. DN Fan 292. Morning. No, I'm not debunking I'm debunking the social justice lies, and then also plus not historical epistemology. So then again, lower your expectations. I should probably go reword that somewhere else. I'm moving my camera a little bit. DN Fan, I've been in a creative slump on an original character bio, and I made it a big goal for this month. Ah, that's interesting, because I too struggle with, it's so warm. It's like if you're in the States, it's like in the 80s and 90s here, 25 to 30, what is it, 25, but it's like 70% humidity. Hi, Sybil, thank you for your paw. You made a creative slump on an original character bio. Now, do you mean, are you writing a book, DN Fan, or is this for, like a game session or whatever else? Because, yeah, my problem, like, is not so much usually ideas. I have lots and lots of ideas. My problem is follow through, like actually picking out what thing to do and then getting it all the way to the end, is where I mostly feel like a failure. When I can't do things, I feel sneeze coming on, so if I sneeze in your face, that is why. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this responding to social justice rhetoric, which from what I can tell, oh, that's too big. That's not what I want. Is merely white supremacist talking points reworked as, that's not, it's kind of hard to say. So what they've done is they've lied. They lie about what all of these things mean. Okay, and we're gonna have a look at it if I can kind of get it to zoom in. Yeah, there we go. Okay. How come I can't zoom? I really despise. Okay, there we go. So notice on here, not a single quote, not a single reference, not a single citation. I know that for most people that wouldn't be something that they would necessarily look at in a chart. For instance, like, who said anti-discrimination laws for unrelated blah blah blah, right? Who said these things? But for those of us who have some critical analysis and critical thinking, you're like, oh my god, the lies. Can't I zoom in on the mouse wheel? I think I have to like hold down shift or something when I zoom in. So this also, again, this is from Google, so it's a little bit but we're gonna zoom this up and go through this. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that seems, I mean, my picture is kind of big. I could probably size myself down. And then I can also move the chat over. Because, end of the day, you guys aren't looking at my face. You are looking at the screen. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Google, for completely taking that down to 0. That's so what I wanted. Alrighty, daddy. So DN Fan says, it's because I struggle with making words work. Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. I don't know if you suffer from like if it's just an aesthetic thing, like you don't like how your sentences look when you put them together, or if you have maybe like some sort of learning obstacle, like a sort of I got a form of dyslexia that makes it more difficult. But whatever it is, I hope that things get easier. Hey Flint. Hey Flint, good morning to you too. So one of the things, I'm technically on vacation this week. And I say technically because I'm still attending my German language course, because my employer pays a lot of money for that, so I feel like I can't just skip out on that. And I also still have a couple work-related things that I have to chase up during the week. So, not really on vacation, but I was trying to figure out I'd like to do something more productive now that my book is over. And so one of the things I thought about was taking each one of these and debunking it. And not only just sort of debunking it, but showing with better scholarship why this is so crap. So in other words, give a real citation and then contrast that with their garbage and the fact that they, so just call them out. So that I might do that as a practice run for using Doodly, but we'll see what happens this week, because again, my aspirations are here, my energy and motivation are far down. My big goal for this week is to get outside. I do have to leave my house to go collect a delivery thing, and that might be like the first time in a week. that I've been forced outside because I get everything delivered now, and I just like go sit on my porch. I don't actually need to physically leave my. Anyway, stop your whining, Kristi. All right, let's have a look at this. So when they so this is responding to social justice rhetoric by Dr. Bruce Gilley, who don't know, and I know Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay because I peer reviewed one of their co-authored articles in a student journal. And yeah, this is totally right-wing propaganda, DN fan. Yeah, definitely. And I'm pretty sure James Lindsay was the actual lead author on it because that was incoherent. It was so poorly written, that thing. So poorly written. And so I'm expecting the similar levels of poor scholarship here. And it is so easy for them to throw out these lies and get attention. And when people try to push back, of course, nothing. But we still do it. Because that changing one mind at a time. Alright, so when they say inclusion, what they mean is restricted speech and justified purges. Can you be more obvious in your white supremacy? Can you be more threatened by the idea of other people having a worldview? Restricted speech and justification of purges. It's just such a lie. And they don't even, try to justify it. Not at all. Which is making people feel, quote-unquote, welcomed by banning anything they find offensive. Ooh. The logical fallacy of the unknown theys. I don't actually think that's a logical fallacy. I'll have to. And, quote, an attack on freedoms of association and speech. This is just white boy whining. White boy whining. White boy. There is no sort of citation for this whatsoever. And, Boghossian lied to Mark Lamont Hill, trying to claim that these are all found in books. If they're found in books, where is the citations? Where are the citations? You frauds. All this is this is something that racist whites, like all three of the white men who wrote this can try to preserve their power, privilege, and prestige in society by going to apathetic whites who have an underlying cultural framework of racial anxiety and patriotism that has been defined in terms of whiteness and not questioning white people, right? We say liberty and justice for all, but we've never meant it. Never meant it. We've only ever meant liberty and justice for white men and whomever they decide they can, should maybe get some of it, and also they get to gatekeep how much of that liberty and justice for all you get as a group, right? So that is lies. It's a cheat sheet for policymakers. So what do we have? Racial justice. What they mean is racial favoritism. You know what's racial favoritism? The white supremacist power structures that have existed since day one of this country, of America. That is racial favoritism. The fact that the immigration policy of the United States was restricted to free white men until the 1800s, and then was still racist after that. Does that get discussed? No. No, that was a long time ago, and people didn't understand. People didn't understand that what they were doing is wrong. Lies. The debates around abolition preceded the Civil War by a lot of time, right? It was an issue that the founding fathers just decided, well, the freedom of black people is something that we can't fight over right now because we need white solidarity. We need to stick together in our bourgeois class solidarity against monarchy. And we can't divide ourselves by fighting over slavery. So we're going to stay together with our identity politics alignment, with our economic interests aligned. And we're just going to go, okay, yeah, we know we're hypocrites on the whole all men are created equal thing. But we're just going to exclude who counts as men. Because women don't count. Non-binary people, of course, weren't even on the radar. So, it's really just us. Yeah, banning things they don't like, writes Sibwolf, like sex between consenting adults of the same gender, like banning organizations and criminalizing people for thinking workers deserve a fair shake. Exactly. So John Henry Beck. Hi, are you new to the show? Welcome very much. I don't recognize your name, and if you have been in the chat before and I haven't called you out and said hello, John Henry, my apologies, and welcome. Anyway, John Henry writes, my guess is that those books they got Those are from unsourced assertions in books by the likes of Shapiro. Do you know where Peter Boghossian in that, so on Kevin's channel on Twitch, we went over the Mark Lamont Hill interview of James Lindsay and Peter Boghossian. And they claimed that the source for this is James Lindsay's crappy propaganda site, the New Discourses. And that allegedly every single one of these can be traced back into a source and a citation from their, like, you lie. You're lying. You're lying. This is white boy lying in order to protect their power. So where we were at, inclusion. No, we already did that one. So racial justice means racial favoritism as opposed to like the entire history of the United States and trying to balance that out so people like, right, which is using anti-discrimination laws for unrelated political purposes. Citations needed. This doesn't even make sense. A violation of equality before the law. Again, the problem is that white people defined equality as equal amongst themselves and really looked the other way when other people were being discriminated against, like Native peoples and East Asian immigrants. You know, like when people came over from East Asia, or like Chinese immigrants, and they wanted to own a business, they could pool together their capital to start one of the few businesses they were allowed to start because they weren't given freedom of opportunity in the United States. They were excluded from certain industries. One of the industries that Chinese American immigrants could be active in was the restaurant industry. And so if you had a group of Chinese immigrants who pooled their money together to open up a restaurant, they needed a white man to sign off on that. They need white man paternalism to run their businesses. So don't even tell me about anti-discrimination laws, rebalancing, things like this. Neo-racist. So neo-racist, which is racism reborn as progressive, semicolon, group stereotyping. I mean, this is such white boy whining. Like literally citation needed. This is such crap. I really want to, just trying to find the best way of smashing this together. All right, BIPOC folks. What they mean is non-European people, which is used for neo-racist policies, which, of course, if you haven't read this line down here, you would not know what this meant. This is so conceptually disorganized. It doesn't say neo-racism, see the which is under whatever. They're just, born as progressive and stereotypes. Oh my god, this is terrible. This is just garbage nonsense. It's really not even, like, to say non-European people is used for neo-racist policies, racism reborn as progressive and stereotypes. It's just trying to demonize the language people of color have used or are using. If we were to do this in the 1960s, what they would put here instead of BIPOC, I don't know how to say that. Just excuse my brain problems today, like my functioning. Like I said, lower your expectations. But if this was the 1960s, I would suggest that, who is this guy again? Bruce, your chart in the 1960s would have African American here, and it would be saying colored people. This is, neo-racist rhetoric, or trying to replace the term colored people. I mean, this is literally a kind of level of racism that we're looking at. All right, white privilege or white supremacy. Okay, two different things. White privilege is something that can be, you don't even have to be conscious of your own white privilege and the benefits that you. White supremacy is more of an attitude of preferring, there's two ways of looking, right? So you get white supremacy, that is just the racial discrimination, the racial bias, saying that people who are not white are not as good as white people. I think there's also a functional supremacy, a hegemony, a domination, right, of culture, of politics, of money, and those being equated with white spaces. So whites are supreme in terms of the power they hold, their economic influence, their cultural control, or again, influence. And a challenge to white supremacy is putting a non-white character as a fictional person in a story, right? That is like an example of how people are offended how some white people are offended when they don't see themselves as heroes, as the center of attention, as the leaders of culture. And so that level of white supremacy is kind of where you get, or not kind of, I would argue, is where you get things like colorism in other communities, where whatever is lighter skinned, whatever is closer to white is considered better, because the norms of that culture have already put up European beauty standards as the perfection and body types, and then everything else falls short. So, and you know, people who see alternatives, some white people who see alternatives, competitors or different frameworks for those same ideas, feel like they are being imposed upon because they're not seeing themselves everywhere. So I think when you talk about diversity and supremacy, it's one of those cases of, you know, like white people like, oh, I'm for diversity, but I don't actually want to, like, I still want to have the white guy hero. You know, I don't want us to, you know, oh yeah, I'm for diversity. We can have, you know, a woman who helps him. He can have a black friend, but not decentering that white character and that particular role of that they play. So honestly, this is so bad. All right, so what we mean is European moral culpability. I don't even know what this means. I don't even know what this means. European moral culpability. I mean, this is, talk about whitewashing white supremacy. What is his name? Bruce can't even be honest about what white supremacy is. Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay obviously can't be. I mean, they put their names on this, and they're basically normalizing white supremacy by saying, by defending it. They're literally defending white supremacy by misframing it as European moral culpability. It's literally not that. It's literally one of the things I just said. Two forms. Like racial, you say like, yeah, biological, the misbelief, the false belief, the lie of biological superiority. In that, you know, in that camp, you can put Charles Murray, right? Anyone who says there are like essential differences that cannot be, you know, that have to be recognized by society would be in that line. Hi, Michael. So hi, Trans Gamer Girl. Get to catch one of these in the new time slot. Oh, yeah, 1 o'clock. Yes, welcome. Hope you are doing well. John Henry says, this chart does bring to mind that quote, what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence, unquote. No, that is the exact wording. I know because that's Hitchens. That's Hitchens' razor. And I've said that to people so many times on Twitter that I actually have it in my predictive text. If I write that which, you left out one word. You're so close. That which can be asserted, it'll just start popping up because of the number of times. So absolutely. Michael Mistaken, hello, welcome. Yo, low peeps. Hello. All right, so what is European moral culpability, which is racist scapegoating, especially against economically disadvantaged Europeans? Oh my God, the lies! I can't even believe that they put this. I mean, this is such. I want to swear, and I can't swear. I mean, it doesn't matter. Honestly, I didn't. If I monetize this content, apparently people check out because I don't like the ads. So it doesn't matter. But I'm just gonna do it to make it. Have I seen James Lindsay? I can understand why he needs some reason to feel superior. Oh, he obviously can't get published in his own field. And that's why he's doing this. Okay. Neo-racist, again, not defined. Racism reborn as progressive. So they just use this thing, racism reborn as progressive, without actually defining. This is so terrible. Having trained your predictive text on that quote is pretty amusing. Yeah, John Henry, it's just a really good thing to say to right-wingers who make really ridiculous assertions, and you just come back at them with either just like that is not an argument, although I don't really use that much. Citation needed, I use that one a lot. And yeah, that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. So present evidence or retract your statement. At least once or twice a week. Okay. Yeah, this is just copy and pasting. I mean, how many times do we get this same phrase just thrown in there? No citations. I don't know, you guys, let's have a little think, because my brain is not that, again, not optimally working. I mean, if you were going to see a video on this debunking it, you know, the problem, what is that one rule about, people in the chat, you guys will know. It takes like 10 times as much to debunk a piece of a lie than it does to say it. So some ideas I had about engaging this is because, you know, like I still am interested in having feminist debates, but at the moment I am trying to be a better ally in issues of racial equality. I mean, self-reflectively, I was quite sympathetic to, let's say, the framing of white feminism in my, you know, early teens. Not early teens, like late teens and early 20s. And I lived in, well, it was, you know, I was growing up in the 90s where it was just coming out of, like, there was, yeah, it wasn't, let's just say we have a lot more opportunities to discuss and think about, and access to reflective, access to material that is helpful in being reflective on the true relation of power. And I didn't get exposed to a lot of ideas, critical thought ideas, critical theorists, or other ways of analyzing powers in these ways. So I'm really nattering. I'm really nattering, for which I apologize. And so I want to find a way to kind of like look at each of these and just destroy it. I mean, just freaking destroy it. But it seems to me what I need is like a cookie cutter formula where I set up the same process for each one of these terms. So let me give you an example. Brandelin's law, the amount of energy needed to refute BS is an order of magnitude larger than to produce it. Absolutely. And so that makes it really important. So trying to communicate information in the 21st century, in the era of YouTube and TikTok and whatnot, requires, I mean, this is, it requires things be simple, or at least immediately accessible. And this is why, you know, people who don't have a lot of understanding of these concepts, or understand them really well and see how this can be used to manipulate people who don't, they're trying to set the bar for white people to be hostile to anything that criticizes racial discrimination. Right? And the way, you know, you almost like need a formula of zooming in on a word and then following, and then actually, like for instance, providing an accurate definition with a source and maybe one or two examples, and then have a second part where you'd say, okay, so what does the chart say about this? And then come here and find some way of exposing this. And I don't know if it could do it in little bite-sized bits, so TikTok size or Twitter size video clips that could be used and posted, for instance. And so it would have to be really efficient, it would have to be well sourced, it would have to be short and to the point. It would probably have to have, you know, a lot of visual information, like big quotes and things like that. So John Henry says, it does look like this is the kind of thing that is hard to thoroughly debunk because you first have to figure out what they're referring to and interpret their ridiculous claims in order to explain the errors. Yes. And that's why I think the way to do that more efficiently is to set up an academically sound definition at the start. So basically, take the concept and show good, rigorous academic practice with your source and a proper quote. And then look at some case studies or look at some other things, and then look at this and undermine it by pointing out where is their citation? This looks nothing like the original definition, and you know, and something else. So it would need to be a very formulaic structure that could then be replicated again and again and again, and that way people who came to it would know every time they opened a video what they were going to do. Like, they were prepared for, first I'm going to get this, and then I'm going to see this, and then I'm going to get my conclusion. So that, but as you say, it's hard to debunk lies because you have to first start with the fact they've got a huge group of people they can influence who will unquestionably believe this. And so I'm trying to fight that fight a little bit more. Speaking of fighting that fight a little bit more, and then we're going to switch topics here. I'm going to talk about historical epistemology a little bit, and then I'm going to wrap up because I'm tired. I am low energy, yada yada yada. I don't remember what I was going to say anymore. No, it's gone. It's absolutely 100% gone. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. In a little bit, right after the show, I'm going to set up for a very exciting talk that I am planning on having on my channel tomorrow, which will be taking place at 12 o'clock Central Eastern Standard Time, which would be, I guess, 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. I have to do the math. Having a discussion about like the framing of critical race theory from my perspective, again, what I know is white people. And I'm not going to lecture any people of color on this topic, so I'm looking at what can I do as a white person to be an ally, and I think the way to do that is to leverage my whiteness in order to provide like a perspective that this is not a threat to white people if you have white people who, you know, like myself, who understand it and think this is a good thing. Yeah, it would be a good use of, yeah, so I'm trying to figure out, rumor with legs, you're saying a good defender, a productive use of my time to debunk this BS. I absolutely agree, and that's what I want to, like I said, I'm on vacation, but I'm not really on vacation. And I'm not fully vaccinated yet, so I don't really want to go out unless, you know, like it's a very limited situation. So I have this week sitting around, and I would like to do something where I could, create something very short and pithy. Here we go. All right, now I am opening up for y'all the slides that I created today. It's very short, this one, because I was tired. And all right. Can I get this to be any bigger? Okay. Boomer moment. Okay, we're just gonna go full screen. I'm gonna move you guys down. Come on. Oh, nothing is working now. Come on, here we go. What is going on with my chat that I can't move it? All right, so we're just gonna blow through this. Let's get on with it. View. Oh god, slideshow. Not from the beginning. Damn it! Not what I wanted. Alright. Let's just move it along. Just deal with the failures. Accept them. I'm too big. There we go. Still a little bit on the big side, I think, for my notes. I will slide again. Oh, got the Lion Kitty in the corner. Whee! Alright. Okay. So I'm going to start off with first just reminding you where we left off last time, because it does, I think, help to jog your memory and just also orient you in terms of the different perspectives, just to remind you. So, where do we go? All right. Merton's Sociology of Science, like most of his Marxist and Weberian predecessors, thought that sociology of successful science, hello microphone, must be confined to the study of how a particular institutionalized practice for the pursuit of knowledge could arise and be sustained. So far as the natural sciences were concerned, there could be no question of a sociological explanation of their content. This was determined entirely by evidence and logic. So that is sort of like the non-French perspective, shall we say. Meanwhile, a few miles later, I'm still blocking your views, so I'm gonna size myself down even more. All right, so just to summarize here, However, quite a different approach to understanding the nature of the sciences was emerging in France, because France. In the empiricist tradition, debate about science tended to be carried on as if some abstract criteria for distinguishing science from non-science could be established independently of historical or social context. And this is sort of the difference. And I kind of feel like this is a lot of the this perspective, right? This position on science is that science somehow stands outside of human cultures, human constructs. I guess it's kind of like, maybe parallel-wise, they're thinking, mathematics is a static. Like, it doesn't really matter where you live or what you do. 1 + 1 =. That, however, doesn't reflect the fact that, like, even though people are working with the same basic framework in terms of how our minds perceived objects independently and how we, like, count things and do sums, that how, like, working from a base 10, working from a base 6, cultures haven't all aggregated to the same way of organizing time. Or, not time, organizing numbers in mathematics. Like 0 was not something everybody came up with independently when doing their mathematical calculations, right? And so I think that's kind of, I'm trying to find something that people who have this rarefied notion of science as being somehow above human societies and cultures, and can dip into values but still be above values. Another parallel, right? And it's full of flaws. So while others were thinking of science as outside of history, the French the French perspective based its view of science on a close study of history. Now this framing of it, taking it as embedded within history, then led to posing different kinds of questions about science from people who were seeing it as being above and detached from human history. And as the French perspective, looking at science as part of history, required greater sensitivity to historical and social processes within science and contextual conditions. I think I've kind of just at that point myself. That's too much. Too fast. Ah! Oh no! Hold on. You get back. Oh no, too far. Alright. Okay. Distinction between science and non-science belief patterns. What's that all about? Okay, I see. The French tradition of historical epistemology shared with the other approaches so far mentioned a strong commitment to the distinction between science and non-scientific patterns of belief. In other words, so sort of they are acknowledging that scientific belief patterns were unique from other pre-scientific forms of belief patterns, and their historical studies focused on the process of formation of scientific disciplines through a struggle against the networks of error and delusion which preceded them. That's just such a, like, I don't know, it seems so French. It's framing. And they also noted that pre-scientific thought is a powerful source of resistance, read religion, but not just religion, to genuine science. That and these pre-scientific thoughts will try to threaten and invalidate scientific advances with epistemological, or in other words, how we can know what we think we know, obstacles. Yes, common sense and pre-scientific thought is not mere ignorance or absence of knowledge. Again, common sense and pre-scientific thought is not mere ignorance or the absence of knowledge, but rather a tenuous, tenacious even, and powerful source of resistance to genuine science. Even after the establishment of science, this tissue of errors continues to exist and threaten to invalidate the tentative achievements of a new science in the shaping of, quote, quote, epistemological obstacles. And let's see, this their perspective, this French perspective, again, recognizes the ways in which particular concepts are bound together. So let me just continue. So as the notion of tissue of error suggests, the approach recognizes the way in which particular concepts are bound together through mutual definition into a systemic or systematic network. So you can think about a capitalist perspective. It takes a lot of things for granted in terms of what things exist and how they exist and how they can be known and how they can be measured. Same thing with a Marxist perspective, or you can take this with an approach, a democratic approach or a fascist approach. Right, so this the French perspective on this is recognizes the ways in which particular concepts are bound together through mutual definitions into a systematic network. Scientific ideas are not invented one by one, but coexist in a theoretic. Sorry, this is very French. So, scientific ideas are not invented one by one, but coexist in theoretical problematics. That is to say, the network of concepts forming the new science enables the posing of certain questions and provides solutions to them. However, the other side of this coin is that each network of concepts, each problematic, also excludes the posing of other questions. The problematic can thus be compared to a beam of a torch, or that's a flashlight for English speakers. It casts a clear light on those objects within its frame, but it leaves all else in the darkness. This calls into question any view of science as somehow complete knowledge, and also illustrates the relation between scientific knowledge and some specific set of theoretical questions. Other questions might give us a different science. I think that's, I've got this in the next slide. These are just kind of like, again, not something natural scientists really I mean, there is a little bit of dealing with this, and you can kind of see how this is a sort of a similar groundwork, as we'll see, to Kuhnian notions of scientific paradigms, right? So it's kind of dipping into this idea of how ideas challenge, how new ideas can challenge old assumptions, and whether or not the process in place allows for the evolution of dogmatic assumptions, or if it's quite inflexible, and what it takes. So, yeah, this is an interesting, we can think very unreflectively about science as it just sort of being, completely neutral and valueless and out there in the world. But when we actually look at its applications, yeah, if you're dealing with atoms and quarks, and astronomical time, or a time in terms of astronomy, yeah, maybe these things aren't so important, but people use science for a lot of things. Health sciences, right? The social sciences. And in those cases, I mean, in every case, you have to think about the cultural structures that are forming those dogmatic assumptions or a priori assumptions, right? Within a worldview. But even the natural sciences are not free from these. So they go on to say, another consequence of the concept of the problematic is that scientific change must necessarily be discontinuous, that is, not connected, and non-cumulative, of course. For a new science to be born, and I'm not, like this, like a new science, I don't know if they mean here like a new approach to science or a new way of doing science, that's not entirely defined, but that's maybe a lack of my understanding. So for a new science to be born, a whole interconnected mesh of falsehoods have to be overthrown. Again, we were talking about like the structure of paradigmatic change, right? So this moment is termed an epistemological break. On here? Nope, I think that's the next slide. Yeah, here we go. An epistemological break. Similarly, subsequent scientific change has to take place, not through the steady accumulation of facts, as in the empiricist picture, but by way of wholesale restructuring of the problematic. And again, that problematic is a network of concepts forming the new science, enabling the posing of certain questions and providing solutions. In this process, previous assumptions are called into question, and science advances not so much by adding to its past achievements, but by overthrowing and replacing them. So I guess it's a different way of thinking about what cumulative knowledge actually means. When we say we're assuming, we're, you know, like we're doing all of these, we're accumulating knowledge. Again, apologies for my struggles to be coherent today. Yeah. Now I lost my train of thought. Yes, and so, God, my brain is so tired. For a new science to be born, a whole interconnected mesh of falsehoods have to be overthrown. So when we talk about the cumulative body of science, if we say, well, we have to reject this entire, all these assumptions that we had about Einsteinian physics and determinism, and we've replaced it with quantum theory, is that cumulative, or are we like throwing out the old and bringing in the... And I think at that point, do we start to talk about Foucault? Yes. So this section, and we're going to get to critical realism in the next lecture, which will be really important. But next, we're going to move on to more French thinkers when it comes to Althusser. I'll have to get a pronunciation on that because I'm not great on continental philosophy. Writing in the 1960s, trying to use the concepts of the problematic and epistemological break in an attempt to relaunch Marxism as creative scientific research. And then from those steps, we're going to and the work of Althusser, okay? And his approach, that's gonna form a basis for critical realism. And we're going to discuss the development of critical realism in the early 1970s to try to find, as a way to answer some of the problems posed by Althusser. I will also get a proper pronunciation of that name by the next time. Alright, so that's your little bit of geek. If that seems interesting to you, you should definitely, you can look into that a little bit more on YouTube, but that's as much as I'm going to do today, because that's all I have time for. Alright, so let me have a look at the chat, see what you guys have been saying. Does this mean the French school avoided the King Crocoduck problem? Yeah, who knows? I haven't checked to see if King Crocoduck has actually put out that video where he claims he was going to address objections to his idea that science is merely a cognitive process as opposed to the accumulation of knowledge that is the accumulated, not the accumulated. Cut me off! Take away my keys. Don't let me drive home. What is in this coffee besides coffee, Chris? What is in this coffee cup besides coffee? He sees it as a radically individualist, devoid from society process that can be reduced to brain responsiveness. Whereas I think everyone else thinks of science as a collective process that is cumulative and builds over time. And to be doing science means to meet certain thresholds that have been established by a community, engaging in a process of transparency so that it can be honestly done. People can do peer review. People do replication in order to establish the credibility and the reliability and the accuracy of what is purported to be found by anyone. So yeah, so the other thing is now I wanna, if you were looking for something to watch after this, I will pop something up. Oh yeah, let me promote. This is from Sam, so let me go. I'll put this in the chat. So this is, yeah, Sam Oadley Brill. He is a PhD student, I think in second year right now. I will, if I can I copy this? I can. I'm going to prop this in the chat if I can figure out where the chat went. There you are. Okay. Oh, you don't need to be this big. I'll pop you back down. Oh, I'm super small again, aren't I? Alright, this is where I'm just gonna natter at you for the last 15. Y'all can enjoy that. Okay, so... Oh! Told you I'm having problems today. Like, I should have just called in sick my own live stream. and things I have to do. Get you posted. So I see Neo Ripshaft has said something. Oh, you're posting into the window. I literally just did. You saw me do copy, right? There we go. All right. Not enough coffee in my coffee. Absolutely. Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Neo Ripchef says, I took an advanced course in continental philosophy not that long ago, and I already forgot these names. It wasn't my focus, though. Missed most of the start, but roll on the floor. What I saw was very nice. All right, hey, yeah, Ripchef, if you want to come back and give us some more substantive comments on continental philosophy. I'm going to admit that my background is very biased toward Anglo philosophy. And actually, well, that's not entirely true. I knew quite a lot of continental philosophy students, and so probably compared to your average American, I have a better appreciation for the role of, say Heidegger, and Nietzsche in, that kind of stuff than maybe some people who have more of an Anglo tradition. They are very continental, and Anglo philosophy or analytic, I guess you'd call it, but it's pretty much the Anglo-speaking world. They have different perspectives. They really do. So that's one. This is Sam's piece. If you want to take a look, this specter is haunting the West, the specter of social justice. All the powers of old civil society have entered into a wicked alliance to convoke this specter. Colleges and universities, broadcasters and newspapers, preachers and politicians. It's high time that the West should openly, in the face of the whole world, publish its views, its aims, its tendencies, and meet this horror story, the specter of social justice, with the manifesto of Western civilization itself. This paranoid rendition of the Communist Manifesto's opening lines might well be a summary of a certain sort of criticism of today's social justice or woke ideologies. This criticism, exemplified by Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay's cynical theories, traces the origins of this ideology back to the postmodernist philosophy of 1960s and 1970s Europe. Yada, yada, yada. So yeah, that's something if you want to check out before the show tomorrow. That is something you can have a look at. Another thing you can look at is where's the okay, hold on. If you were okay, sorry, I'm trying to think and talk and click at the same time. So if you were watching the show with Kevin the other day, we looked at I lost my train of thought. You know what? Just give me 2 seconds. I had to find this video. Oh, yes, that's what I was going to say. There's this guy. Here we go. He's a really anti-critical race theorist, dude. Small channel. Super small channel. He had a video on self-pleasure. How he wanted to stop daily self-gratification and how, or basically how Jordan Peterson got him to stop. And that came up. Like I said, he's radically honest, but, yeah. Okay. So here's Aaron. He talked to this guy. I think he kind of teased him a little bit about her earlier video. And I haven't watched this yet. It's on my to-do. I think this came out, yesterday, the 19th. Today's the 20th, so it's only been out for a few hours. And if you want, I will also put this in the chat if you want to prep, or if you're looking for something else to watch. And that will be the end of my show. So hopefully next week, Sunday, I will be back to my normal levels of energy. I did some retail therapy. I got some new bedding, so that's kind of cheered me up, made me feel like a little bit, my space is a bit nicer, so I'll see, that continue. But anyway, if you guys have the weird, yes, that guy, I am going to be, so I do have a D&D game in 5 hours. I'm mostly planning, I do think I'll be okay, Trans Gamer Girl, because, all y'all are going to be planning out, like, your heist on the Hall of Knowledge, so I don't feel like I have a whole lot of prep to do, because I'm mostly going to be responding to what you guys do in the city. So I might be low energy during the game, but I am planning on being. Sometimes it's just like the important thing is to like show up and just make the effort, even if it's a bit crap. So yeah, and let me get that Mark Lamont Hill clip, because that was really good. I'll also put that in the chat for y'all. James, that's the one. Oh my god, spanks. Spank, 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 spank. And it deserves so many more views than it's gotten. So, retail therapy, yeah. It's just that sort of sense of that thrill, or like, I mean, it's sort of self-explanatory. I don't mean pedantically explain it to you. But yeah, that's a sort of joy of having something new or nice or a difference, right? I've had the same thing is, you know, like the bedding I've had, some of the bedding I have now, it's mostly for when guests come, but I got it when I was doing my PhD. Like, those sheets have been, like, are very, like, they've been with me for a while. And you just get bored of the same thing, so having something new and pretty to look at, or to, like, just kind of snuggle into, yeah, retail therapy. Yes, so there's that link for that chat. And yeah, thanks for being a sounding board. I'm going to try to figure out some sort of copy or cookie cutter way to create debunking, like, TikToks or something for these videos, and see if I can get 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 out while I'm on vacation. Because who needs to actually rest when they're on vacation, when they can, like, do more production, they can create more content, produce. All right. And yeah, please do watch Mark Lamont Hill just smack these guys down. Bogosian's just deer in headlights. Like, and the only thing he says is, well, everything that doesn't have a citation can be traced back to a book. You liar. Such a liar. Okay. If you want to hear more Take 2. So if you want to continue to hear the sound of my voice, you can always head over to D&D Gaming with Kristi Winners, or Kristi. I don't even know the name of my own channel. And if for some reason you're enjoying this, you can come back next Sunday, where we'll do something similar again. And yeah, we'll get deeper into historical epistemology and look at the groundwork laid for the establishment of critical realism. Hello, traffic. Critical realism as in the 1970s. So until next time, I've been Kristi. You all have been awesome. I appreciate your time and attention. I hope you have a great day, great week, great whatever it is, whatever it is you are, whatever you're doing. I hope it's all awesome. So yeah, I've been Kristi. You've been awesome. I did all those things. Okay. All right. That's it. Bye.